What's this? Where's the world-famous spreadsheet theme? Well, your buddy Haas here has got to start trying to make some money off this thing, and I'm glad it seems I can make ad money while actively advocating the abolition of capitalism. I'm in this system, and I've got to survive somehow, but I'm happy to start my podcast with an ad read for Anchor. I publish my podcast using Anchor. It's the easiest way to make a podcast, and it's totally free to produce your show using their handy tools, and it's free and easy to monetize your podcast with them. That's what I'm doing right now. You see, I downloaded the Anchor app out of curiosity, and then it sort of coaxed me into making a minute-long podcast trailer, and before I knew it, I was producing this weird podcast and having the time of my life. So the least I can do is let Anchor pay me to tell you that they have creation tools that allow you to record, edit, publish, distribute, and monetize with no minimum listenership your podcast from your smartphone and computer for free. Then people all over the world will be able to hear your brain thoughts via Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and most other major platforms. Pay me money, Anchor, and I'll make you an awesome, super catchy jingle. For now, listener, use Anchor, everything you need to make a podcast. The democratization of audio. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. Now, for this week's edition of Spreadsheet.
You see, the doctors, it only came because we let the fathers, the monsters, we let them rule. But now, all we have to do is make a spreadsheet.
The House of Pod. That's right, the House of Pod. That's at the House of Pod on the Twitters, at THEHOUSEOFPOD on Twitter. The House of Pod is great. It's a great, newish podcast hosted by two real-life doctors. That seems like a good thing to be listening to right about now. You know, because of the once-in-a-century global pandemic we're living through. The world may be spinning out of control, folks, but at least we have a humor-adjacent medical podcast hosted by two docs, Kaveh and Lizzie, putting the fun back into M-Fun medicine. I heard Kaveh on the Even More News podcast with Cody Johnston and Katie Stoll, and I thought the name of this podcast sounds familiar. Then, lo and behold, it turns out that Sorry Hat already called you out before, Sorry Hat, but here's a free plug for Sorry_Hat. That's at Sorry_Hat on Twitter. Great artist who made a couple of hellishly rad pieces for me to use in the future, which I'm still hanging on to and sitting on for the right moment to unleash them. But Sorry Hat designed the House of Pod logo. It's a cool bitchin'-ass medicine snake thing. So everybody go check out their podcast. It's hosted by two real doctors, like I say, who are legit funny and entertaining. And guess what? I have contacted them, and you will either be hearing one or both of those beautiful docs through your earballs on Spreadsheet sometime soon. That's this show. Spreadsheet. The House of Pod is not a fake name. Their podcast is indeed called The House of Pod, but Haas Bossman is my fake name, and you're listening to Spreadsheet. Let's get going, as we often do in these minisodes, with some Haas news. I posted a few clips from last week's episode of Spreadsheet. That's part 2 of my amazing interview with Jordan Holmes. Big thanks to Jordan Holmes of the Knowledge Fight podcast, one of my all-time favorite podcasts, and author of The Quiet Part Loud. Listen to that episode. It's really cool. We talk about satire and comedy and just all kinds of stuff. It's actually 2 episodes. It's a 2-parter with Jordan Holmes, but that was episode 9 was the second part of that, and episode 7 was the first part. But I have gotten some good feedback on that episode, which is always lovely, of course. I posted a few clips from last week's episode of Spreadsheet, my amazing interview with Jordan Holmes, in a roughly 15-minute YouTube video with some real fun visual enhancements. It's like my thoughts on kind of debating in general, and where I was in last week's episode where I broke down a couple things about some debates I'd heard. Modern day debate and the thing on the Bad Faith podcast. I've gotten some good feedback on that video. That is at bit.ly/hosstube, all lowercase, HOSSTUBE. Bit.ly/hosstube is the shortened link to go straight to my YouTube channel page and check out all that stuff. Also, check out bit.ly/callhoss. I don't talk about this enough, but there is a link you can go to, and it's at bit.ly/callhoss, all lowercase. That will, I think the lowercase matters. If it doesn't, I'm going to feel really dumb when somebody corrects me on that. But yeah, bit.ly/callhoss. You can leave a message. Haven't been promoting that link lately, but you can visit that link. In the form of a declarative statement, an interrogative question, which is redundant. Really, whatever you want, and I'll probably play it on Breadsheet. So visit bit.ly/hosstube for my YouTube channel and bit.ly/callhoss to leave me a non-racist message. That part's very important, especially if you wanted to get played on the show. If it is racist, I'm sorry, but I will not play it. Actually, I'm not sorry. You know what? Don't leave racist messages for podcast hosts. Alrighty, folks, it saddens me, but also it doesn't sadden me that much to report that there was a little scheduling hiccup with Darcy the Mail Girl, whom, if you recall, I was planning to have on Breadsheet this week to talk about positive body image and feminism and horror movies and stuff, but we had to reschedule that for next week. That sucks. You're not going to hear that this week, but it is going to be coming up soon before Halloween. Hopefully, unless something else happens, but that is scheduled to happen before Halloween, and I will have the episode out. My interview with Darcy the Mail Girl, also known as Diana Prince, who is awesome, and co-host on The Last Drive-In, or I guess assistant to the host on The Last Drive-In, handles all the social media and stuff. That's a show on Shudder, which I think I'm going to mention in a second. I've got on my outline here somewhere. Praise be. I have something that I've been saving, and I think now is a great time to release it, but it still needs to be edited because I don't know that everything we touched on was strictly legal. And as is the nature of something like what we were doing, I talked about some personal stuff. Not that I mind sharing my feels with y'all. I just want to make sure I'm not bringing any unwilling parties into the episode. But the thing of which I speak is my tarot reading with Rachel Quirky Schenk. That's right, folks. I was planning on releasing this tarot reading next week, but now all I got to do is switch Rachel Quirky Schenk's, that is Rachel Schenk from the Screen, Snark, and Infinity podcast with her episode with that's not even her full episode. I haven't done her full interview yet, but that's going to be coming up soon as well. But she's Rachel Schenk. She's on Twitter at I am Rachel Quirky. That's at I am Rachel Quirky, all one word. It's going to be a bonus tarot reading, a Haas tarot reading, a tarot reading from Rachel Quirky Schenk. I'm going to switch that with when I was going to release the Darcy the Mail Girl chat, and will be as golden as my beautiful locks were when I had long hair. But that does mean that Darcy's not going to be able to plug the Last Drive-In Halloween special, which is airing this Friday night on Shudder. But here I am telling you to watch it, so at least there's that. This actually ties in with some more Haas news. I should really make a Haas news theme, but I'm strapped for time right now, and I really want to give it the care and attention it deserves, so I'll do that soon. Which admittedly is not that much care and attention, I guess. But anyhow, I'm working hard on what was going to be a 2-part video for Halloween, but it's getting to be crunch time here, so I'm going to tweak that plan. I think I'm going over my 25 top films currently streaming on Shudder. I kind of just chose Shudder as a thing to do that with because I like Shudder a lot. And it might be a good time to do like a free trial if you want to check out some of those movies. And kind of just wanted to pick something to focus. And as you'll hear later, I'm planning on, I have a few other horror stuff to recommend to you, but that's coming up on Reggie. Okay, so I know that tarot cards aren't really that Halloween-y. They're not evil, they're not magic, they're not satanic or witchcraft or anything like that, but, and not even all witchcraft is like Halloween-y or horror-ish. I mean, I don't know, maybe it depends, but they are kind of fun and spooky, the tarot cards, and most importantly, it's the closest thing I have to something Halloween-y or Halloween-ish, Halloween-y, ready to edit right now. We have some good discussion during the reading about how we're both atheists, but don't allow that to limit the range of potentially spiritual or neat experiences we will allow ourselves to have. It's really good. I really loved my chat with her. It was my first time ever speaking with Rachel Quirky Schenk, face to face, so to speak. And she's cool. And I can't wait to have her on for a full episode, the hour-long chat. It's going to be great. Between my self-imposed deadlines, trying to find gigs, or maybe even a job to scrape by in this wicked, wicked world, I'm actually thinking this minisode might wind up being kind of mini. But I know this one has been mostly housekeeping so far, update kind of stuff, and I owe y'all at least a take or two this week, or at least some reflections that aren't just about the podcast and other stuff that I'm making. So, like I said, I'm already working on a magnum opus of sorts with my favorite movies streaming on Shudder, but why don't we spread eagle into a spooky edition of Haas Recommends. First thing, subscribe to my YouTube channel, and as soon as my first Shudder recommendation video comes out, sign up for a free trial and binge my list. Get pumped about my chat with Darcy The Mail Girl by watching The Last Drive-In on Shudder. You know, come to think of it, pushing that episode with Darcy The Mail Girl back a little bit might be a blessing in disguise, because it'll give me more time to work on her original song. I guess I could have just tweaked the John Carpenter-esque horror music I made recently to apply to her, since horror is her thing, but that is not what I promised to do, so Darcy will get a 100% original song that was specifically intended for her from Jump Street. I don't know, I got some good Halloween sounds, so I might use some of the same like keyboard settings. I can use the same friggin' keyboard sound, and I don't think it breaks the rule. But yeah, it's going to be 100% designed for her, just like all other proper guests from now on. I'm sticking to that. Okay. Now, some other stuff to recommend. Let's start with some good Halloween music. Yeah, let's do Hallows Eve themed recommendations. I've already recommended Slayer on here, and I know true blue thrash metal fans will disagree with this take, but I really loved their 2001 album, God Hates Us All, even being more familiar with some other songs from their catalog. I'm a bit biased because it's the first album of theirs I owned and listened to. It's God Hates Us All. Listened to it back in high school, and I mean, it has some of my favorite bangers on it, and of course, the satanic death stuff is fun for the Halloween season, but it's definitely not like, you know, most big Slayer fans would probably not list it as their top Slayer album. You really can't deny Disciple, though, from that album. It's so good. That's one thing, listening to the album now, it does have some kind of new metalish tendencies in parts. Just some of the melodies and stuff are sort of reminiscent. Like there's one that's like it's kind of got that like post Pearl Jam sort of feel to it in some ways. Well, I guess this one's going to kind of continue my theme of professing to not be as cool as other people, but additional Halloween music. I know a real punk would probably recommend the Misfits here, something like that, or maybe something more obscure than the Misfits. But, you know, I can't really deny the greatest hits of the Misfits, but I'm going to recommend a little EP from a band that many of you might be familiar with, though in vastly differing capacities from one another, depending on if you've ever really been into punk music at all. But the All Hallows EP by AFI, one of the great punk EPs there is. I remember being a little shit about it when AFI completely changed their sound and somewhat altered their aesthetic when the music video for Girls Not Grey came out in 2003. I was but a wee lad, perhaps at my little shitist at like 14 or 15 years old. You'll hear punk rock gatekeeping around this topic if you eavesdrop on little turds like I was. And yes, I still very much prefer AFI's earlier, more quote-unquote punk work, but really all they did was redirect their silly, fun, overdramatic, dark, gothish, Misfits-esque vibe from a punk sound to more of an overdramatic emo thing,
which was never really my thing, but it was big at the time, 2003, when they kind of made that switch. And no matter how much emo darkness they put into the universe, it can never overshadow their more comic booky, earlier punk stuff, which is just some fantastic 90s alternative punk stuff. Also, not to get too nitpicky here, but their mainstream debut, Sing the Sorrow, which contained Girls Not Grey, probably the song that the vast majority of people who even know who AFI are were familiarized with them through, because I had a music video and got some radio play and stuff. But that stuff only represents a further evolution that had been happening since really Black Sails in the Sunset had been released a couple albums prior. I think that's from 1999. 2000-ish, something like that. But I'd say that Black Sails and everything prior is worth checking out. Lots of fun, horror-themed, gothish, death stuff to dive into. But I'm recommending All Hallows EP here because A, it's obviously Halloween-themed. B, it represents AFI's music at roughly the height of their skills before they changed up their style. And C, it has a great cover of The Misfits' Halloween and two of my all-time favorite AFI songs, The Boy Who Destroyed the World, which you might recognize from one of the old Tony Hawk games. I think it was in one of the first three. And Total Immortal, which was weirdly covered by The Offspring in a passable but far inferior version that is on the soundtrack to the underrated but still not all that great Jim Carrey and I think Renee Zellweger vehicle, Me, Myself, and Irene. For some reason, Offspring's cover of Total Immortal by AFI is in the Me, Myself, and Irene soundtrack. Yes. And D, there are only 4 songs on the All Hallows EP, so it's a highly digestible introduction to AFI's older style. Any fan of 90s punk will recommend that EP to you. That's All Hallows EP. Okay, per usual, this minisode is getting not so many. So here's a couple of truncated hot Halloween recs for you. I'll go with movies and shows that are currently on Netflix, so this will be applicable to most people listening, I'm assuming. I plan to soon, but as I record this, I still haven't watched The Haunting of Bly Manor, the follow-up to seriously one of my top 3 favorite shows released in the last decade, The Haunting of Hill House. Like some of the other great horror stories of our time, I'm thinking Hereditary and Pet Sematary, The Haunting of Hill House combines real life, or at least kind of realistic family drama, tragedy, grief stuff that really elicits a deep feeling of darkness. Then kind of uses genuinely scary / creepy supernatural elements to kind of twist the knife of the real life depressing drama. This is kind of an oversimplification of a horror storytelling tactic I've thought a lot about and definitely want to dive into more deeply, either here on the podcast or in an essay or something on my YouTube channel. But that's the long and veiny of it, as they say. Alrighty, pulling up Netflix now just to rattle off a few horror or horror-esque titles that you should check out if you never have, to whet your appetite for my Shudder recommendations, which will be coming out soon. Like I said, audio of the first 15 of those. Then there's going to be a video listing the top 10 and giving a little quick review of each of those. Okay, first movie I'm seeing here. These are all on Netflix. Horror recommendations. Apostle. A fantasy horror-ish mystery about a spooky cult. Very well done by director Gareth Edwards. Undersung when released, and as these straight-to-streaming films tend to do, seems to have been quickly forgotten about. Highly recommend. 4.5 out of 5. And what I am just now seeing, this is breaking real time, folks. I am just now seeing that there's a new Tremors out, Shrieker Island, on Netflix. Sorry, I don't check Netflix too often. I'm more of a 2-hour Chomsky lecture on YouTube kind of guy. All right, that sounds really pretentious, but it's because I can't really read smart books. I watch people giving lectures about smart things so that I can be smarter with my brain functions, but not have to read really boring books. It's really a nice solution. I've seen all the Tremors movies. They pretty steadily decline in quality from the first one on, and I think there's 6 or 7 of them at this point. The first Tremors is obviously a masterpiece. Definitely watch that if you haven't seen that. But they're all pretty much worth a watch if you like that kind of creature feature and you can stomach some kind of lower budget stuff. They're mostly a lot of fun. Jamie Kennedy shows up in the 2 most recent ones before this, so that sucks. That's probably enough to make people not want to watch those. He appears not to be in this new one, but Michael Gross as Bert Gummer. He always returns. He's been in all of them, pretty sure. And it looks like John Heater, a.k.a. Napoleon Dynamite, is in this. Definitely watching that tonight, if I can get this episode edited in time, which, when you see what time this posted, you will know. Was I able to get it done in a reasonable time or not? Probably not. Okay, looks like classics like Silence of the Lambs, Poltergeist, The Evil Dead, Killer Clowns from Outer Space, and probably a bunch of other ones are on Netflix. I'm just going through the popular on Netflix right now. Maybe I should find some. Anyway, actually, Killer Clowns from Outer Space. That's a classic in my book. I've seen this one a lot. It's apparently the exact same age as I am. So enjoy this self-aware 80s body horror-ish, over-the-top, silly, fun camp classic with lots of really cool like prosthetics and puppetry and costumes and masks and stuff on its 32nd year on this good green earth. Speaking of green things, also Green Room. Not really a horror movie, definitely horrific, and walks that line maybe falls somewhat into the aforementioned or aforementioned. I don't know what the right way to say that is. Somebody tell me. Twitter.com @Haas_Bossman. The aforementioned realistic horror category, I think is what I was saying it maybe falls into. Very gory. Some hard-to-watch stuff, but it stars Anton Yelchin, rest in peace, Imogen Poots, who I believe is alive, and maybe from Arrested Development. What is her name? It's an interesting, cool name that she has. Alia Shawkat. I think it's Alia Shawkat. It's Green Room is about a punk band that gets trapped backstage at a neo-Nazi punk club. And it stars Patrick Stewart, in addition to the ones I just mentioned, as a neo-Nazi gang leader in a like super creepy but subdued performance. And if I haven't sold you on this with the stuff I've said about it so far, what the hell is wrong with you? That is the premise of a must-see movie, no? That was Green Room. Anaconda is on Netflix. Taped that off of TV onto a VHS as a kid and just wore that movie out, playing it over and over again. I think actually that was one that, yes, definitely I drew a cover for it, which I did that with some movies that I like to watch a lot that I only had taped off the TV. I would like glue a piece of paper to it and draw a cover like in crayon for it. I think I did that with, yes, I definitely did that with Anaconda. I remember what the cover looked like. But I don't know, since I haven't seen it since age 10, maybe longer. I've heard that movie is like really, really bad. Like I said, I haven't seen it since like age 10, but maybe it's like so bad it's good now. Okay, this one comes highly recommended from me. That's It Comes at Night. Oh, I haven't been giving the star ratings for these. Let me go back and look. Apostle was 4.5 out of 5. Next one I said was Silence of the Lambs, which is obviously like a 4.5 out of 5. Poltergeist, I'd give that like a 3.5 out of 5. Definitely worth a watch and very cool movie, but, not like one of my all-time favorites. The Evil Dead, that's like 4.5 out of 5, maybe 5 out of 5. Killer Clowns from Outer Space, that one, personally, I would give like a 4 out of 5 because I love it so much, but, objectively speaking, it's probably not that good. Green Room, that's a 4 out of 5, maybe 4.5 out of 5. Awesome movie. Anaconda, I don't know, my memory gives it like a 6 or 7 out of 5, but I guess it's not actually good. It Comes at Night. Okay, so also a very undersung and I think badly rated movie by some people because people were expecting like straight ahead horror, I think. It very much is not straight ahead horror. The trailers definitely seem to sell it as something completely different from what it is. So I would recommend the less you know about it going in, the better. Try not to have expectations and just know that it's an awesome movie that Haas definitely recommends.
4.5 out of 5.
I think it's one of those that got a real bad cinema score rating, which I think Hereditary also got a real bad cinema score rating. And I mean, that's one of the best movies to come out in the past few years. Definitely one of the best horror movies. Love that movie, but I think it has a bad rating like audiences give it a bad rating, and movies that have trailers that sell the movie as something like really different from what it actually is tend to have those. And I think Hereditary was like that, being kind of a family drama. That aspect maybe people weren't as into. I don't know. Under the Shadow, I can't really recommend because I haven't seen it yet, but I do recommend another Iranian film by what I was thinking was the same director that is on my Shudder list. This movie called A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night. It's very cool, like kind of artsy black and white vampire movie that's Iranian, but maybe this is a bit racist of me or something, but I mean, I've never really seen any other Iranian movies, so for some reason, I think I heard somebody say they were the same director, and that's why I thought that, but I just looked it up, and no, they're not. Iranian. I love watching movies, especially horror movies from different cultures. Is something I talk about in this video that I'm working on, because I think it's interesting to see what different types of like anxieties and fears and just imagery that they play off of. Like a good Japanese horror movie is like hard to beat. Korean horror movies are also great. I love Spanish ones. There's an Argentinian one that's on my Shudder list called Terrified. That's really cool. It's like the only thing I've ever seen that was made in Argentina, but it's amazing. Yeah, Under the Shadow could be some interesting commentary from another culture. Like I say, I can't technically recommend it, but I'm sure it's awesome if it's half as good as the only other Iranian movie I've ever seen, which is also a horror movie. Expand your horizons. Watch an Iranian horror movie that's also a commentary on something. Like I said, I haven't seen it. I think it's set between the Iraq-Iran conflict, which I guess is like 80s, early 90s, and it's about a bomb and stuff. So, plays on their, and, I'm sure just like a commentary on their anxieties about, the stuff that obviously in that region, there's a lot of turmoil and difficult, like I was talking about, real life horror stuff to really kind of get you into the mindset to really twist the supernatural knife, if that makes sense. Okay, that's probably enough for now. Let's get out of the Haas Recommends Phantom Zone before we're trapped here forever. Okie doke, okie folks. I think that's going to do it for today's Minisode of Breadsheet. This one actually is a little bit minier than the other ones. Check out that last drive-in Halloween special on Shudder, or just check out any of the episodes of that if you're unfamiliar, to get stoked about Darcy The Mail Girl. That's at kinky_horror on Twitter. She's got a Breadsheet chat upcoming, and I've got some great questions for her, and I'm super excited. I've already recorded some of that intro. So it should be out next Thursday night / Friday morning, a week from today, as is now scheduled, or a week from this episode dropping. Again, subscribe to my YouTube channel at bit.ly/HossTube. Check out what I got going on over there, and stay tuned for some horror / spooky / supernatural adjacent stuff, both on that channel and this podcast, real soon. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Hoss_Bossman. Support me on Patreon at patreon.com/Hoss_Bossman. I mean, have I done something to not deserve you doing that? Please rate and review and share and recommend this podcast. That stuff really does help a lot. I have no money, and now that there's an ad on the show, I get a little money, emphasizing very little. I think I've accumulated like $4 as of this recording, but I get a little bit when people, especially new people, listen to the show. Gonna play y'all, my beloved sheetheads, out of this week with something that's kind of special, actually. Not quite ready to use my amazing Halloween Carpenter-esque song, which I teased earlier. I'm going to use that in a couple of things coming up soon here. It'll probably be featured on next week's episode in some way or another. But this, again, can be found on my YouTube channel, where I made a little trailer for upcoming horror stuff, and there's other just fun video essays. It's more about like pop culture stuff on that channel. I want to start doing some more political stuff soon, but for now, I'm going to have some Halloween fun up until, the election. Maybe after that, I'll get a little more serious. Sorry, I don't have anything Halloween themed for you, any music this week that I own the rights to anyhow. Never really recorded or written a Halloweeny song. Maybe I should do that and prep for next year. But I'm going to ride out on another song by my pop country alter ego, Daryl Grishaw, which I played a song or two of Daryl's before. I've been saving this one to make a music video for, but I think this show is still small enough that I won't be spoiling it by giving y'all a little taste here of some of my other stuff. I have several of these like fake pop country songs. I really do think this might be one of the best. Might be the best, but definitely top 3 of my fake country songs I've written, as in it's really, really dumb, but also largely sounds like it could be a real song. It's called Seen It All, and I have to give mad props to Jake Hicks of Jake Hicks and the Journeymen and other musical projects, including the K-Max, my band, which you can check out at thekmax.bandcamp.com. That's the KMACKS. THEKMACKS.bandcamp.com. You can also download one of our albums, my personal favorite of them, on Apple Music and Spotify. You can stream them and all that stuff. It's called Tobacco and Firearms. But anyway, Jake is our drummer for the K-Max and a great backing vocalist as well. And I got to give him props for helping me write and record this one. His vocals are actually on this track I'm about to play, the harmonies in the chorus. So yeah, want to make a music video for this one sometime soon, but gonna let my sheetheads enjoy it for now. And then you can say, I was there when. Until next week, I've been Hoss Bossman. This has been Breadsheet, wishing you and yours a spooktacular Hallows Eve season. Looking forward to sounding off again soon, a couple days before Halloween. Everybody, please make sure that the energy you disperse as you go about your lives sends ripples of love throughout the quantum fabric of space-time. Yeah? Yeah. Now here's Seen It All by Daryl Grishaw.
I remember just like yesterday when I first laid my eyes on that pretty tan girl with the real long pretty thighs. We were just 17 years old playing down by the creek, and I swear it was the prettiest thing I'd ever seen. I think that yesterday was the best day of my life. She got the eyes of me and she got the mouth of my wife. I was in the hospital when I saw my baby girl, and I'll be damned if it didn't change my world. 'Cause I've seen heaven and earth, I've seen the canyon so grand, I've seen Stone Mountain at dawn when the sun was coming here. I've been all over this world, I've seen it all, my girl. Yeah, I thought I seen it all. I His almighty touch. I've seen Stone Mountain at